We live in a culture that talks endlessly about divorce. In the United States, nearly 50% of all marriages will end in one. It is a known outcome, a statistical probability. But there is a period just before the end that almost no one ever talks about. A quiet, terrifying, and unbelievably dangerous phase, where the war has not yet been declared, but the battle lines are being drawn in secret. This is the prelude to divorce, a gray zone of uncertainty and escalating tension. And during this critical window, people consistently make a series of devastating, unforced errors, mistakes born of emotion, desperation, and a profound misunderstanding of the new reality they are about to enter. These are not just mistakes. They are tactical blunders that can cost you your children, your assets, your sanity, and your future. This is not a story about how to save your marriage. This is a story about how not to lose the war before it has even begun. To understand this high-stakes phase, you must first accept a brutal truth. The moment the word divorce is seriously considered by either partner, the fundamental nature of your alliance has changed. You are no longer two partners in a shared mission. You have become two opposing commanders, whether you admit it or not, preparing for a conflict over resources, territory, and the future. Your spouse is no longer your confidant. They have become your adversary. To ignore this shift is the first and most foundational error. You may still be sharing a home, a bed, a life, but you are now operating in enemy territory. And every word you say, every action you take, will be recorded as intelligence. This brings us to the first critical mistake people make in this prelude phase. It is a mistake born of a desperate need for emotional release. It is called unsecured communication. In a marriage, your spouse is your primary emotional outlet. You share your deepest fears, your frustrations, your anger. But in the prelude to divorce, this habit becomes a weapon that can be used against you with devastating effect. Every angry text message, every tearful late-night voicemail, every scathing email you send is no longer a private communication between partners. It is a piece of evidence. It is a potential exhibit in a future court filing. Let's imagine a scenario. You are filled with rage and hurt. You send a long, vitriolic text message detailing all of your spouse's failings, and perhaps, in a moment of anger, you make a threat you don't mean. You'll be sorry, or I'll make sure you never see the kids again. In your mind, you are just venting. But what you have actually done is create a digital receipt of your own emotional instability. That text message can be screenshot. It can be handed to a lawyer. It can be presented to a judge as evidence that you are an unstable, vindictive, or threatening parent. Your moment of emotional release has just become a permanent part of the official record of your character. The correct protocol in this phase is radical communication discipline. You must assume that every word you write, every syllable you speak, is being recorded for a hostile audience. This is not paranoia. It is strategic survival. But this is where everything takes a turn. While securing your communications is a defensive maneuver, the next error is an offensive one, often committed with the best of intentions. It is the mistake of launching a public relations campaign. You are hurting. You feel wronged. You need allies. So you begin to talk. You talk to your friends. You talk to your family. You talk to your spouse's friends and family. You are trying to build a coalition of support, to have your narrative, your version of the story, validated. You are trying to win the court of public opinion. But in doing so, you are making a catastrophic strategic error. You are disseminating sensitive intelligence to unsecured third parties. Your friends, meaning well, may offer advice that is emotionally satisfying but legally disastrous. Your family, in their anger on your behalf, may confront your spouse, escalating the conflict. And most dangerously, when you speak to your spouse's friends or family, you are not recruiting allies. You are speaking directly to enemy agents. Every word you say will be relayed back to your spouse, often twisted and reframed. Your attempts to explain your side of the story will be interpreted as an act of aggression, a public smearing campaign. You have not won allies. You have confirmed to your adversary that this will be a public, dirty war, and you have given them the ammunition to fight it. And what happened next in countless real-world cases shocked even the legal experts. They found that these early PR campaigns almost always backfire, leading to more aggressive, more costly, and more emotionally damaging legal battles. But the real question is, what is the most common and financially devastating mistake of all? Here's where things get even more intense. We must analyze the error of premature withdrawal from the alliance. Out of anger, spite, or a desire for a symbolic act of separation, one partner moves out of the family home. It feels like a decisive step, a declaration of independence. But legally, it can be an act of unilateral surrender. In many legal jurisdictions, leaving the marital home, especially if there are children involved, can be interpreted as abandoning the property and, more critically, abandoning your role as a primary caregiver. Your spouse remains in the command center, the family home, establishing a status quo. They are now the parent who is there every morning, every night. When the time comes for a judge to make temporary orders about custody and living arrangements, they will often look to preserve this status quo to minimize disruption for the children. By moving out prematurely, without a legal agreement in place, you may have unintentionally handed your adversary the single most powerful advantage in a custody battle: possession of the home and the children. You have voluntarily moved from the fortress to a forward operating base with a compromised supply line. It is a tactical blunder from which it can be incredibly difficult to recover. This is the point where the story becomes unbelievable, because the next mistake is not about what you do, but about what you don't do. It is the error of intelligence failure. You are still living in the same house, operating under a fragile ceasefire, but you are blind. You have no idea what your spouse is doing financially. You may have trusted them to handle the investments, the bank accounts, the credit cards. You are operating with a complete lack of financial intelligence. In the prelude to divorce, your spouse may be quietly executing a series of financial maneuvers: moving money, opening new accounts, liquidating assets, racking up debt on joint credit cards. They are fortifying their financial position while you remain unaware. The critical protocol here is to immediately become your own intelligence agent. You must, quietly and legally, gather as much financial documentation as you can: bank statements, investment records, tax returns, credit card bills. You are not stealing. You are conducting reconnaissance. You are creating a snapshot of the financial reality of the alliance before it begins to be dismantled. To walk into a divorce negotiation without this intelligence is to walk into a high-stakes negotiation completely blind. It is malpractice against yourself. This leads us to the climax. The single most destructive, most irreversible error you can make in the prelude to war. It is the act of using your children as operatives. This is the darkest and most common tactic of all. It is born of a desperate need for information and emotional leverage. You begin to ask your children questions. What did mommy say about me? Is daddy seeing someone new? You turn them into unwitting intelligence agents, sending them across enemy lines to gather information. Or worse, you use them as messengers, as carriers of your own anger and pain. Tell your father that if he doesn't pay for your field trip, he's a deadbeat. You are not just communicating. You are using your child as a weapon. This is a war crime in the theater of family. It does not just damage your legal standing by demonstrating a willingness to put your children in the middle of a conflict. It inflicts a level of psychological damage on a child that is profound and often permanent. You are forcing them to choose sides in a war they never asked for. Between the two people they are biologically programmed to love and trust unconditionally. The moment you use your child as an operative, you have already lost. You have lost your integrity. You have lost your moral high ground. And you have sacrificed your child's well-being for a temporary and ultimately meaningless tactical advantage. The prelude to divorce is a test. It is a test of your discipline, your strategy, and your character. The desire to react emotionally is immense. But every action must be viewed through a new, colder lens. Will this help me secure a stable, peaceful future? Or will it simply provide a fleeting moment of emotional satisfaction at the cost of long-term strategic disaster? You must secure your communications. You must cease all public relations campaigns. You must not surrender key territory. You must gather your intelligence. And you must never, ever, compromise the safety of your non-combatants. This is not about being ruthless. It is about being smart. It is about understanding the new rules of engagement, so that you can navigate the coming conflict with your resources, your dignity, and your future intact. And the truth is, this story isn't finished yet. For anyone standing in this quiet, terrifying gray zone, the choices you make in the next few weeks and months will determine the entire trajectory of the rest of your life.